Let me start. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar whose title is Implement Classroom Perspectives. The presenter is Okon Effiong, former President of Africa TESOL. Okon holds a PhD in linguistics from university, one university in the United Kingdom, and he is an English lecturer in the Foundation Program Department of English, Qatar University. He has taught in Nigeria, United Kingdom, and Japan. Okon is also the founder of Africa TESOL and the current past president. He has held several leadership positions in TESOL International Association and was the president of Qatar TESOL in 2014 to 2015. Over the past years, a number of approaches to implementing the language curriculum have emerged. And these issues will be discussed in this webinar by the presenter. And let's welcome the presenter and give him the floor. Welcome, His Excellency Okon.
Thank you, Flavian. Apologies for the fluffy audio. We're bound to have technical problems now and again. Welcome, everybody. My presentation, Implementing Language Curriculum in the Classroom Perspective. So we'll be looking at the aspects of what happens in the classroom regarding how the curriculum is implemented. I'll try to keep my presentation less academic and more practical. And I don't think I have anything new to share here. This is what we do every day in the classroom. So I'll probably talk for 20 minutes, 25 minutes maximum, and then we'll have another 20 to 30 minutes to discuss the issues that will arise from my presentation. First, take a look at the screen. This is a teaser. Can someone make sense of this? You walk into a Japanese restaurant, you can't understand any word of Japanese, and you see this. What does this tell you? The only language you speak is English, or understand is English. Yes? I'm going to allow, who wants to talk? I can allow you to talk. Yes? I'm allowing all the presenters to talk, I mean participants to talk now, if you want to.
Is it a vending machine?
Yes, the vending machine.
Probably just take a lucky guess.
Yeah. Can you make sense of it?
No.
What English word do you see? Or English phrase?
Just the numbers and to go and to hear.
So, to hear, to go.
Yeah.
To hear means eat in. To go is take away. That's it.
Okay.
To hear, eat in, yep, you can eat inside. To go means if you want to take away, you press that button. That's how it works. So that is the only way I could make sense of this, because there was nobody to speak English and I was going to eat in. So I opted for the left outcome. Well, this is just an example of a functional use of English. And now to my presentation. We'll look at the curriculum and content appropriateness, the classroom, the teacher, the learner, and what does the teacher take to the classroom? This is the main issue. What does the teacher take to the classroom? Talking about appropriateness, we have curriculum design. We have the designers. Oftentimes, what is in the curriculum may look really good, but the implementation may be poor. So the point here is the people designing the curriculum, if they don't belong to the classroom, they may not really understand how this will be implemented. The end product may not really reflect what it says. So it is for this reason that the course designer and the implementer should be the same person. Teachers should be involved in curriculum design. If they don't have any input in the curriculum design, then there's bound to be a gap between what it says and what happens in the classroom. Then looking at this model here, which I copied from Nation and McAllister, we have the big circle, but my focus today will be on the inner circle, the content sequencing, format presentation, monitoring, and assessing. But I'll quickly explain what the principles, environments, and the needs are. So the learner, the teacher, the situation reflects the environment. The situation is the context in which you teach. The emphasis placed on language development or language learning. It also it means what the policymakers design and what they expect from the learners. And in any given situation, we have stakeholders, parents, the education board, the teachers, the institution, so many stakeholders. But not every stakeholder contributes to the curriculum design. So in looking at this model here, whatever happens in the classroom between the learner and the teacher is influenced by the context. Okay, so then the next slide is about the needs. When we talk about needs, the learner needs, the environmental needs, what does the society expect? What are the priorities? What is the language used for? If it is a monolingual culture and English is not used outside the classroom, what exactly are you going to teach the learner? Are you going to teach them language for everyday use when there's no opportunity to use it outside the classroom? The proficiency level as well of the learner will also determine how the teacher teaches and what the teacher needs to do. We have needs, we have wants. We want to be very rich, we want to be politicians, we want to be presidents, we want to travel around the world, but what does the learner really need? So the learner needs in this case will be what he's going to do with the language when he or she leaves school. If he's going to be using the language to improve his job hunting, then this again will be reflected in what goes on in the classroom. If he's just going to use the language because, just pass the course because it's a requirement for graduation, that again will also influence what the learner is doing in the classroom and how he's going to contribute to the learning process. The motivation, the aptitude, the attitude. The next slide, and don't worry, very soon we'll skip the academic part of things. The contents and sequencing. I'm going to give you an example of what we are doing here in Qatar University in my program. I'll show you some samples. The content and sequencing, which the curriculum now translates into syllabus and now comes to learning objectives and then what are the whatever happens in the classroom. Then the format and presentation. This is what the teacher has to deal with. How does he present his lesson? How does he structure his lesson? Monitoring and assessment. This is also to do with the teacher and maybe the administration. Does the teacher engage in self-reflection to see how successful the teaching has been? And how does it measure success in this case? By assessment, assessing the students. So the content and sequencing is what is in the syllabus. Then what happens in the classroom? Presentation. And then after the lesson or after the course, you monitor, you assess. Monitoring and assessing shouldn't be at the end of the program. It should be at the end of each lesson. You assess your teaching. So you can do that by self-evaluation. You can do that by testing the students or the learners if that day's lesson has been successful or not. So next slide. Balancing what the curriculum requires and what the learner wants. This is a very difficult one. Now my question is, are we teaching to fit the curriculum or are we teaching to fit the learner? That is a big question. In some contexts, teachers will just teach to fit the curriculum. They rush their program, they rush the teaching. At the end of the semester or the end of the term, as long as they cover the main areas that is specified in the curriculum, their job is considered done. Or are we teaching for the student to learn what the curriculum prescribes? Or will it be a better option if you have maybe 10 items to cover in the syllabus? You're able to cover 6 or 7, and the learners are actually able to understand these 6 or 7 aspects of the program. Or will you just rush and finish the 10 items? Meanwhile, the learners have only been able to understand or learn 2 or 3. So this is a balancing act. But I, personally, in my view, I think we should be teaching to fit the learner. The curriculum should be a prescription, but we teach more to fit the learner. That is what my view is. Maybe it's something we can discuss after my presentation. Okay, now course rationale. Oh, sorry, back again to that screen. The course rationale. Who is it for? What is it about? What really happens in the classroom? This is what decides what goes into a particular program. So here, I'll show you some of the examples we use in my program here. There's a program, my program, because foundation program, we have the post-foundation, we have the foundation, and we have the embedded. The foundation program is for learners whose IELTS score is less than 5.5. They have to pass through the university. They have to go through this program for 1 year before they can start their major courses. We also have the embedded program. This is for students learning in Arabic. There are 4 courses they must pass in the university before they graduate. Then we have the post-foundation program, which is the students who are studying in English, and they need English in their major courses. So this is the high end of the program itself, because the students here are very proficient, they're more motivated, and it's mostly writing. So this is the first, the English one for the post-foundation, understanding the writing process and using it in different genres, and then developing critical and reflective thinking skills. That is the rationale for the course. So I won't go into the details of then when they move to the second one, this is more like understanding academic papers, writing 10 papers of projects, and being able to use APA style of writing. Now to the other sub-program called the embedded. These are students who just need the English to pass the course, just to graduate from their law, engineering, or education courses. And these are the least motivated of all our learners because they are not using the English in their daily program, and they are probably going to work where they'll never use English in the office. So for these students, they just want to pass. So the first course is Poly English 1, just introducing them to the process of reading and speaking. So they do give presentations. We teach them basic vocabulary, and then how to use connectors in presentations. And then the second part of it, which is English 2, is a continuation of the next one. So this takes us back to the original slide, that the course rationale. So there's so much difference in what the learner is actually learning and what is going to happen after the learning process. Now we move to the one that is more specific. We have English for business students. We have English for law students. These ones are like a ESP, English for specific purpose. And then these are students that are going to be using English in their practice. So it's more advanced than what we've seen. And these students are those that will do the embedded 1, 2, 3, then they branch into these specialized English courses. So that now takes me to different classrooms in different parts of the world. We have team teaching. This is very common in the Asian context, where you have the English teacher, which in Japan, they call it assistant English teacher or assistant language teacher. I'm sure that's what happens in Korea as well and China. And then you have the native teacher who speaks the local language, the L1. And in some cases, the English teacher is just asked to read a few passages in the book, and then the rest is just the local language, the L1, mostly translation, grammar translation. And in some schools, the teacher may be given the freedom to implement his own, the English teacher, the foreign English teacher may be given the freedom to implement his own ideas. I taught in 5 different secondary schools in Japan, and I had different experiences. I can tell you more when we are discussing. This is like a perfect classroom for a teacher, an ideal classroom where students sit together, they seem very focused, and they're happy with them. I mean, the teacher will be happy to have students looking so serious, maybe working in pairs, collaborating. So this looks like a hardworking class. And then I take you to Africa. The picture on the right is Nigeria, actually, Borno State, where you have the Boko Haram. And the picture on the left is from Angola. We learn in the classroom. So if we have learners in a room, we call it a classroom. Now we have learners in the open under a tree. So we probably call this a class tree. But before you think otherwise, I want to assure you that learning takes place here too. I went to a village primary school. You can see a building in the background. My primary school was not better than what you've seen in the background there. We didn't learn under a tree. And the picture on the right, when some of these students were interviewed, a girl in the class said she wants to be a medical doctor so that she can help sick people. A boy responded by saying that he wants to be a police officer because he likes uniform. So an interesting study I carried out in 2010 for a group of clinical psychologists in Japan. It was a study in Nigeria. I was asked to get some data from 4 to 6 year olds in Nigeria. So among the questions were like identifying 4 colors: red, blue, green, and yellow. And the other one was to draw a man and a woman. I went to Abuja, the capital city. All the kids there knew the colors. They knew all the colors in English. But the drawing was very strange. It was just like a straight line and 2 strands there to represent a man and a head. I went to my village to replicate that study. In my village primary school, the boys could not say what yellow was in English or in my language. They didn't know what green was in English and in my language when I showed them the color. Only 2 in a class of 45 identified blue in English. Red, everybody knew what red was. The strange thing was, when it came to drawing, they produced better images than the children in Abuja, which kind of reminded me of my days in the village in the 1960s. In the evenings, we'll be drawing on sand. One uncle will be going around, or one big cousin will be going around to inspect our drawing. So what I'm trying to say here is the environment can influence learning in different ways. The kids in Abuja, they have posh classrooms with computers and everything. They knew the colors and other things, but they couldn't draw. Their kids in the village with no facilities had better drawing skills. So there we go. I think there's more to talk about when we come to discussion, because I only have 5 more minutes. Here you go again in the classroom. These are dreamers. This is very common in the Asian context. The English teacher walks in, all the children or the students, they just go to sleep. When the bell goes, boom, 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 they get up and go. For them, they've attended the lesson, end of story. In some contexts, you see the student playing with their mobile phones. They don't listen to the teacher. They just play with their mobile phone. At the end of the class, they walk away. So this is what is going on, which kind of reflects what I said earlier on about what happens in the classroom, the curriculum design, the implementation, and how the teacher formats the lesson and implements it. So in the classroom, we look at ergonomics, you look at the sitting arrangement. These are things the teacher can do to promote language learning. How does the arrangement, the classroom arrangement of chairs and the desk influence the learning? How does it promote collaboration? Are the desks fixed such that the students cannot work in groups? Or is it, are the tables movable, or desks movable? They can come together working in groups? Is it only teacher fronted? Or can the teacher move freely to have a one-on-one interaction with the students? Is it possible to form groups of 2s or 4s or 3s or facilitate individual learning? What facilities are there to be utilized? Sometimes you may have the board and then maybe access to the board may not be possible. You may have technology and it doesn't work, or you may even have technology at all. We shouldn't blame our environment, our teaching environment for our performance. Look at the saying at the bottom of the screen. A bad workman always blames his tools. No. Whatever your tool is, use it. And I have a short video here to play from YouTube. This is the teacher role. We are there to support. We are there to create the environment to make it conducive for learning to take place. And then we need to reflect by looking at ourselves as learners. We are learning the teaching process, so we need to reflect. Then we need to evaluate for feedback. And we need to develop the resources that are context appropriate. So let me see if this will play. Hopefully it should. So this was at the TESOL conference where teachers were asked what they mean by support.
Is there a video playing, Okon?
Yes, it is playing.
Oh, it's not showing.
It's not showing. What about the audio?
Nothing is showing.
Oh my God. Hey. Sorry, I thought I was playing this. Amin just told me that you're not hearing or seeing anything. Oh. Okay, we'll move on and maybe hopefully we can get that to play. I don't know why it's not playing. Let's move on. Hold on. Sorry about that. Okay. So maybe I will see how we can play that. It was about it was an IFTEFL conference at 2016, where Macmillan was interviewing some teachers and asking them how they support their learners in the classroom. And there were different responses. Like one says he provides a lot of feedback to the student. There's a lot of interaction. Another teacher said there were experts from Canada and America coming into the classroom to have conversation. And this is probably from a context where they feel that English is only best taught by an American or British. or Canadian. And then another one said they have a good rapport, and then he provides feedback constantly. And so now to the learner role, I should be coming to the end of my talk now. See, this is what we expect of our learners: attend classes, complete assigned duties, support their mates, and maintain discipline in class. But to achieve this four, the items on the right side will influence the success of these ones on the left side: motivation, aptitude, attitudes, and maybe the level of anxiety, which will affect their willingness to communicate in a language, especially when it comes to speaking skills. And then the individual learning style of the learners. So next one, dealing with individual differences, you probably get that information from maybe interviews or from the admission process, and then from one-to-one interaction with the learners. And then you can adjust your teaching method to meet individual differences. And then maybe a specialized program to offer extra support, and maybe grouping learners of different proficiency levels so that they can collaborate and help each other. Then you talk about institutional support, what facilities are available, like we saw under the tree, that there was no technology there, materials and textbooks, incentives by the employer, I mean, the opportunities the teacher is given to promote himself professionally, holidays and salaries and schemes, and then bodies like Africa TESOL to provide networking opportunities, and a webinar like this for teachers to use to grow professionally. And then taking you back to the open air learning, my message here is do what you can with what you have, where you are. Make the best of it, instead of blaming your tool, blaming your performance as a result of not being given the resources you need. Now, how much is too much when you're going to the classroom? What are you taking to the classroom? These are things the teacher will be reflecting on. Is it test driven? Are you teaching learners who want to go to America to improve their lives or to seek better lives? Or people who are already happy where they are and they only just want to pass the course? What opportunities are available? What facilities are available? What atmosphere are you creating? Your lesson material, does it reflect a global knowledge or local knowledge? Are you teaching them important materials from just the Europe and America or Australia or New Zealand? Or are you using materials that they can relate to in your classroom? How much time do you have for preparation? What other administrative responsibilities do you have? What about learner readiness? So these are the issues that will influence what happens in the classroom. Sometimes we forget. We are human. We should always reflect and fix. Because according to my quote at the bottom, it is a mistake to make a mistake, but not a mistake to repeat it. Look at the comment on the top screen, the left side, about a man who went to complain about being underpaid. He didn't complain when he was overpaid. And I think we can leave the floor open now for discussion. And I hope I didn't rush you too much. Okay.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Okon, for your wonderful presentation. Now it is time for questions, and if you feel like asking any question or making any, you can do that.
I'm trying to allow you to talk here. I'm clicking on individual participants, allowed to talk, so you can, yes.
Thank you. Yeah, Okon, thank you for your wonderful presentation. And it is time for questions. I was saying that this is a wonderful presentation, and thank you for doing that. Now it is time for questions.
Okay, I can see two hands. Teneg Bame, yes?
Good evening, Okon.
Hi.
Yeah, hi. My name is Patience from Cameroon.
Oh, okay. Patience, okay. I was reading a different name here.
It's my name. It's my name.
All right.
about the actual curriculum that takes place in the classroom, how much the teacher teaches according to his context, right?
I mentioned that.
Yes, my question is, because you also said that the teacher has to be involved in the designing of the curriculum.
I also said that.
Yes, but when in a context where the teacher has been given a textbook and the teacher is not involved in any designing of the curriculum, even the teaching approach that is in place is just top down, and the teacher is expected to complete certain by a certain period of time. The teacher is expected to have covered a certain portion of that textbook. Now, but the teacher has a willingness to bring in things that will relate to the context of the learners. In that case, what should the teacher do? Should the teacher just follow and rush and complete the program so that the administration will be happy with the teacher? Or the teacher, if you were the teacher, will you bring in material that you deem necessary according to the needs of your learners so that your learners should actually learn, even though you might not be in good terms with the administration?
You know, nobody ever forgets a good teacher. In my presentation, I mentioned a curriculum that is, the teaching agenda that fits the curriculum and the one that fits the learner. I will support teaching to fit the learner, because if you just want to be a yes woman or yes man, then you teach to please the administrators. So talking about them not having the opportunity to have an input in the curriculum design. Where I am, we do have the opportunity. Can you switch off your microphone, please? There's a baby crying in the background. Can you switch off your microphone? So I'm just talking to everybody, yeah. So we do have the opportunity to have an input. They send textbooks, about 4 textbooks for us to vote, and then we vote on, choose the best 2, we then vote on the 2 again, and then they choose the one with the majority. So that's one way to contribute to material choice, or the choice of materials. When it comes to having contributing to the curriculum, this is not something we just do over a 1 or 1 month period. It should be part of the school agenda that before the program is started, you get the teachers that will involve to make an input, and then you run it by the policymakers, and maybe you have a teacher representing the teachers at the policymaking level, so that he goes there with the teachers' ideas to include in the curriculum. So I would say, please, if you really have a conscience and you want to be a professional, it's best to teach so that you feel happy with yourself that your learners have actually learned. You adapt the textbook to suit your environment. You bring your materials that will actually say what the textbook is saying, but in a clearer and more interesting way to your learners. That would be my response to your question.
Thank you very much, Okon.
Thank you. Yes, we're here. Any more hands? Katano, yes, Katano, I can see you.
Hi, Okon. Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
Yeah.
Hi. Yeah, my question is in regarding to you mentioned about the global and local issues. I mean, I think it's a little bit also related to the previous question, and you answered it correctly. I mean, what sort of, what type of balance could we put in place when we are talking about the global and the local knowledge, in this case, to bring into the classroom to our groups? What sort of balance would you recommend on that?
Yes, I think the balance will also depend on the context. Because if you are teaching in a context where these students are not using the language outside the classroom, for example, when I was in Japan, and then the learners are not using English outside the classroom, except very rarely they meet a foreigner at the train station or at the airport, then you should be thinking more of the local content more than the global. Because in some classes, when I did some observations, the teachers were using New York Times, articles from New York Times, using articles from London Financial Times. And in the data I collected, the students complain that they don't understand what is going on in London or America. Why are they teaching them things in America? Whereas locally, they could use a similar newspaper or magazines or whatever there is locally to promote learning. So that is one way of looking at balancing local and global. But then coming to Africa, our continent, where most of us really want to get out of Africa to go and seek better opportunities in Europe or America, I think in that sense, it would be good to expose them to what is going on outside their local context. So there again, you have to bring in more of the global content into, not necessarily more than the local, but you bring in sufficient quantity of global content to give them that knowledge of what obtains outside, which will also help to make their dream even brighter to get out. And then looking at the language itself, we also look at language and culture. If you are learning a language, we also need to learn the culture of that language. So it's important that you bring in the global content which will reflect the culture of that language, whether it is Portuguese or Spanish or Italian or German you are teaching the students. So that way they can also understand how that language operates in its native land. Have I answered your question, Katano?
Yeah, very good, very good. Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
I mean, people are welcome to contribute. I saw a hand by HP, Hewlett Packard. It doesn't say the name. What is the question, please? HP, it doesn't say what the name is, just HP. I don't know if it's an abbreviation or initial or the system, the device the person is using. I don't know, I've been seeing, Emin, are you there? I've seen many microphones there are muted. I'm trying to mute them, so I don't know if the individuals mute the microphones or.
Yeah, I'm here. I just muted my microphone.
Okay, so I assume that these ones are muted. Okay. We're still here. Can we get more questions from people, or can we reflect on what has been discussed? Or... Okay, Samia. Hi, Samia. I can see you. Hi, Samia.
Okay.
Yeah, question, please. If you're not using your microphone, can you mute it, please? Because some babies are talking in the background. Hi, Samia. Go ahead.
Hi, Okon. How are you?
I'm good.
Nice to see you. Thank you for the fruitful presentation. I just would like to share with you that very little is given to the teacher to say in decision making as far as education and the curriculum is concerned. The problem here is that we can divide teachers to two categories. One category that keeps looking for new practices and keeps looking for professional development opportunities and learn things that they bring into their classes and avoid sticking to the textbook and to the curriculum 100%, but still they respect the general guidelines. The problem with students, the majority of students, they fall within the hands of teachers, who just stick to the textbook. Their way of teaching is monotonous. They keep complaining about scarcity of resources, and they never, attempt to bring some change and bring new practices in the classroom. And I guess that these students die with these complaining teachers who do not want to develop. I still insist that very little is given to the teacher in decision making. Even meetings with ELT supervisors to guide and channel their practices inside their classrooms is, they are rarely held, maybe one meeting a year, and sometimes even that one meeting is not held. So what I want to say is the profession of a teacher is in a way marginalized. The ministry is just issuing regulations and issuing things that they should respect. And the textbook is there for years and years, it doesn't change, okay? And the problem is it remains very individual in terms of efforts of teachers to bring new things to their classrooms. I would like to thank you, Okon, okay, because I know the efforts you're investing, to develop as a teacher and as a passionate person in the profession is so important, and you pass on this to other teachers. So if, hello?
Yeah, we can hear you, Samia. Go ahead.
Yes, Okon, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Okon?
you're breaking up, but I heard 99% of what you said. It's just in the later part.
Oh,
We started losing you. Are you there? Hi, Samia. Okay.
can you hear me?
Okay, we can hear you now.
Hello?
Continue. We can hear you now.
I hope you get my point, Okon.
Absolutely. Thank you
So
very
if you
much,
go
Samia.
into if you go into some EFL classes and you find amazing things happening, believe me, it's not because top at the level, this is done at the top of the decision level, but this is just done at the individual level of the teacher.
That is correct. And that is what I call professionalism. It's not just the eye service. You're doing it because it's coming from within. And that is the reward we get as teachers. When you go home, you sleep very well at night, knowing fully well that you've given your best to your students, and your students are learning. And like I said before, we are judged by the students, not necessarily by the administrators who do the appraisal and they give you points and give you promotion. No. At the end of the day, it is the professionalism in the teacher that will decide how he or she approaches the teaching process. So I'm happy to hear what you've said, Samia. And most times we have a square peg in a round hole. And some countries, you may have a minister of education and you think, oh, this man is an engineer, he doesn't understand. This man is a businessman, he's made a minister of education, he doesn't understand what goes on in the classroom. Then you appoint a professor of education to be the minister of education, things do not change. So it can be very frustrating at times. But like I said, we work on it at the individual level because what happens in the classroom is it's within the control of the teacher. It's within the control of the teacher. And I don't believe in doing eye service when they come once in a year to supervise your class. You bring in all the bells and the fancy things to show that you're a good teacher. No, keep it natural. Do what you normally do every day. Whoever your supervisor is or the observer is can then ask you, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? And then the reality will be there for him to see or for her to see that the facilities are not there, the support is not there, the textbook is inappropriate. But just for the sake of getting your salary, some people just do it. They don't want to complain. So keep up the good work, Samia. Thank you very much. I appreciate your commendation as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okon.
Hand, yes, I can see your hand.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sure, I can hear you.
Okay. I just wanted to ask about Dreamtime Learning, the picture of the student hand.
Go ahead.
Something that's done in classes because it could help, or is it just? Can you talk about it a little?
And this is real.
Yeah. They actually have a
because
session where
that is an English class you see where students are sleeping.
Okay.
Sometimes let me use Japan as an example. We have the foreigners who are teaching English. I was one of them. Then you have the Japanese teachers, the JTEs, who teach writing and reading. The foreigners are expected to teach speaking and listening, communication skills. So when it comes to the class of the native Japanese teacher teaching English, the students just go to bed. And then also in the class taught by the foreigner, if you're not motivating, if you're not entertaining, if you don't with their interest, they do exactly the same thing. So they come to class, attendance taken, as far as they're concerned, they're in class. The bell goes and they're out. That's just the way it is. It is real. It's not fake. It is real, and it's very common.
So that means the classes need to be really engaging and motivating for.
Absolutely, absolutely. Or they just go to sleep, and I mean that's actually in some cases better than sitting there making noise and disturbing the teacher, or disturbing maybe one or two students who are willing to learn. They just put their head down, the bell goes and they leave. And these are students that have learned English for like 6 years in secondary school, 2 years in the university. You see them outside, how are you, how are you, how are you, how are you? What's your name, what is your name? No word of English. And you wonder, after learning English for 8 years, you can't even say, I'm fine, thank you, or this is how it is. So the context also determines how the teacher approaches his teaching. They don't feel any need. They're not going to America. So international posture is very little. They don't see the need to even learn the language. They're very patriotic. They love their language. They'll tell you that I love Japanese. I'm not going to America to look for a better job. So I don't need English. True. Yeah. Okay. Musa, you're there?
Thank you.
Yeah. Musa, I can see your hand. Okay, Harry. Hi, Harry.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, sure. Please contribute.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a contribution. I attended a session, I think it was the Hornby Scholars at an ITFO conference, I can remember. And one of them said something that resonated with my experience. And what she said, I think she was from South Africa, was that as long as governments provide education and pay for the education of young people, policies will always be top down. And that's true because it's a person who pays, who blow, I don't know, the expression about pays the piper determines the tune. So I think there's really no point, and there's a lot of this research on bottom up and all of that, but policy will always be top down because it is determined with other motives. And like large classes in Africa, I see policy as a condition. For example, we have got diabetes. When you have diabetes, you don't go and die. You live with it. So I don't think that it's a worthwhile activity for teachers to complain about policy all the time. It will always be like that. I have seen teachers, an example is the fact that when I worked as a teacher in the far north of Cameroon, my principal or the head of department would ask me how many units I have covered, of how many units of the textbook. But I have seen teachers who cover those units of the textbook without necessarily using the materials in the textbook. Because what we do as language teachers is that we are teaching language, and we can pick the language content of a textbook and use materials that are more interesting and relevant to the students, which also include that lesson, the language content of that unit. And I have seen many, I really mean many creative teachers in Cameroon keeping the textbook as picking the language content of the textbook, but then drawing materials that are far more interesting to their students and teaching them that same language content through the interesting materials. And at the end of the day, they have still covered the unit in the same way as a teacher who is complaining about policy and hanging on to the textbook is doing. So I think it's easier to complain about policy, but policy will never change. And so to make our life better, I think it's more important for teachers to think about their role in the classroom, because in reality, teachers make decisions every day in their classroom. And many of those decisions go against what policymakers are asking them to do, and it works in their classroom. So I hesitate to think that teachers are that useless, that they cannot take initiatives and that they cannot be creative around the existing policies in their classroom. At least we are kings in our classroom, and we need to take that.
That is the message, Harry, and that is a kind of resonates with what Samia said earlier on, which is what teachers should be doing in the classroom. You're right, that we are the kings in the classroom and the queens, so we make our decisions, and as long as we do what we feel comfortable with, and it is meaningful and rewarding to both the teacher and the learner, then we're good. I can see many hands now. More contributions. Musa, yep. Musa, can you talk now? Sorry, I didn't unmute your mic. Hi.
Do you hear me?
I can hear you, Musa.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President.
Ex-president.
Yeah, I know, but you are still a president. Yeah, this is sure. But first of all, I apologize for being a little bit late. But I wanted to talk about curriculum because somebody says in the conversations that curriculums in some most of the countries, curriculums are top down, and this is real. But for me, as a teacher and as a creative teacher, it's up to us to try to work on these curriculums and try to show our creativity. Because if I take this, the example of Senegal, when we have the curriculum and we go in our different schools, the first thing we do is to have a kind of meeting, a mix. This is what we call a local cell. And during that meeting, the different teachers try to give their own job, their personal job, about the curriculum and the program they wanted to implement to the class. And sometimes you will see that it's not really easy, but when we discuss between us teachers, we'll find methods and manners to deal with the curriculum and the content we are going to teach it to our students. And sometimes it's more easier for a teacher to work with the others and find solutions than a teacher who tries to work alone. And I can take my example. In my very early years of teaching, it was in 2009, 2010, something like that. I had many problems to deal with the curriculum and when the activities I wanted to do, because sometimes you feel like the curriculum doesn't take into account the activities you wanted to do. But if you read it, clearly, and you work with other teachers, you will see that there are some ways to shift some points and try to include other ones. And this is complementary for me. I think this can help us as young teachers to go farther than we think it's possible. Only if we accept to work with other teachers and not work alone. So the second thing I wanted to say was said by someone. It was about the languages and the culture of each language. So this is just to say before finishing, thank you once again, Mr. Okon, for this brilliant presentation. And also, I apologize once again for being late, guys.
Thank you, Musa. Thank you, Musa. Yeah. Emin, you want to contribute? Yeah. Emin, I see your hand. Emin?
Oh, no, I didn't raise my hand, maybe by mistake, but it's
okay.
interesting presentation, Okon. Yeah, I just have some comments that are being addressed already. And the most important one is about top-down policies and the autonomy that teachers have in the classroom.
Hello?
Yes.
Yep.
So the autonomy that teachers have in the classroom, as it has been addressed by some colleagues, that as teachers, we have very little to do with the curriculum, but we also have autonomy in the classroom to shape the learning of the students in a way that matches the outcomes that are described in the curriculum.
Yeah, useful. I mean, that's where I think we have a consensus here that what we do in the classroom should matter more than maybe, like Harry said, we shouldn't waste our energy crying over policies and top-down approach, and we should just try to be the very best that we are in the classroom. And like Samia said, and then adapt and modify and do our best. Yeah, Eric, I can see your hand. You want to say something?
Yes, Okon, I'm very happy to be here.
You're welcome.
I must apologize for the late coming. I came in earlier when Harry announced it through our committee research group, reminding us that this is starting now. And I was alert, but I tried to set up my equipment at home and something went wrong till about 30 minutes. That said, I'm very happy to meet all of you here. I listened to you giving explanations to some questions. I also listened to Harry, and I also listened to Musa. I listened to Eamon. I think this idea of policy has overtaken, has overwhelmed the teachers to the extent that they feel like, okay, because they're always kept apart from policy, then there's nothing else they can do. But what they forget to know too is that what we, let me say we teachers forget to know is that, well, the policy is there, but the people who are in direct contact with the students are us, the teachers. We are the ones who are in direct contact. Therefore, we are the technicians on the board to determine how to implement this policy, how to implement the curriculum. We tried an approach here in Cameroon once with a group of 9 teachers, trying to translate the curriculum into composite schemes of work. And that was a kind of community of practice stuff, as Musa earlier said. We all realized that this hierarchical nature of assessing what coverage could actually be done without necessarily sacrificing learning. So I think more or less it's a way of, I think it's a lack of the technique to manage the curriculum than rather a policy issue, and to get these teachers manage whatever kind of curriculum they have in a way that doesn't.
Have we lost you there? Eric? I think we've lost you. And I'd just like to add that that initiative to break the curriculum down is a good one. I mean, same as what Musa said in Senegal, is happening in Senegal, where teachers are invited and they make contributions to the curriculum development. So I'm sorry, we lost Eric. And I see Isaac. Isaac, your hand is up. Hi, Isaac.
Hi, how are you? I hope you're doing good. So first of all, I really want to thank you so much for your insightful presentation. And I really want to thank my professor and my trainer, Samia Wardan, for inviting me to attend this webinar. And by the way, I'm still teacher trainee. I'm really new to this field of teaching. And by the way, my MA thesis was about teachers' involvement in curriculum change and curriculum development. And what I really recommend, I don't really have a question, I just have a recommendation. What I recommend as a novice researcher is that before planning any curriculum change, teachers' views, opinions, and concerns must be taken into account. And as you know, the more teachers participate in responsible and, you know, the more teachers participate in decision-making, the more positive they feel about the way they teach, and also the more positive they feel about the curriculum they use. And, you know, and the more willing also they become engaged in future changes. And so this is really my point. And I truly believe that teachers' involvement in curriculum design, teachers' involvement in curriculum change is really important. We need to involve teachers. We need to take their views and opinions into account. And thank you so much.
You're welcome. I'm happy with this discussion. I only wish we had so much time to talk about this. It's 2 minutes to the hour, but I'm happy to stay on if you still want to stay on. Harry, you still I see many hands now. I'm looking for somebody who hasn't spoken before. Samia, you still want to say something? You want to add something?
Yes, Okon. I will. Hi, Okon. I will be brief. I have only one question.
Go ahead.
My question is related to research. I am a researcher myself, investigating some of the issues in ELT, and I know that there is tremendous and massive research in the field of ELT in Morocco. My question is, do ministries know about researches conducted nationwide? And 2, what is done with the findings of this research? Do they build their decisions on the findings of this research, or is it just a waste of time and a waste of money?
I wouldn't use the word waste of time and money, because when we come to conferences or we publish our findings in journals, we are disseminating to the community. We are disseminating to our colleagues who can use them. So, sorry, someone is talking. Who can use them? We're sharing our knowledge so that our colleagues can implement these findings in their respective classrooms. So I would worry less about what the authorities or the ministry authority will be doing with the research finding. But if you're lucky to have somebody who is really aware of what research can do to the teaching of the language of any given subject, that person will be able to promote research activities in schools, and then also be interested in getting the research finding by maybe incentivizing the researchers. If you do a research, you publish in a blue chip journal, you get some X amount of money. If you publish in a journal with, I've forgotten what they call it, the rating, something number, I can't remember the thing offhand now. You get X amount of money. So that really shows that the ministry is in support of research. They are compensating teachers who are making good, high quality research and publishing them. But if people are not being incentivized, they don't even care about your participation in research activities, it means they're, like Harry said, top-down thing. Hey, take this, go and teach. Very prescriptive. And that is not a good way to deal with the language policy, in my opinion. So, but you can't give up because the people in the ministry are not interested in what you're doing. No, you do it for professional development, self-satisfaction, and to share with us who are in your shoes too, who are frustrated with the administrators. We are happy to get these findings, which is why we keep coming together all the time to brainstorm and go away with new information.
Thank you, Okon. Thank you, Okon. Thank you.
You're welcome. Katano, you're there? Katano? Esak, I think,
yes.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, there's a hand here who has not spoken. Yes? Esak, you want to say something else? You want to add? Okay, I don't know. I'm happy to stay here and discuss. I don't know.
I'm desperate to say something.
Oh, yep. Go ahead. Who is that, please?
Harry. It's Harry.
Harry?
It's Harry.
Yes. Okay, Harry, I'm looking for you here. Yeah, go ahead, Harry.
I am trying to play the the devil's advocate, and I am playing this role from my experience of having been a teacher trainer, and a policymaker at the Ministry of Education in Cameroon, and a researcher. The truth, let's be honest, many of the people who become policymakers in ministries of education have been teachers like you and I before. But the circle continues. So definitely there's something that's happening up there we don't know. In fact, the worst minister of education in Cameroon during my time was a teacher. So these things happen all the time. Now, there's one thing we haven't probably not mentioned here. We have all talked about the teacher's voice and the importance, and our young trainee colleague from Morocco, whose name I've just forgotten, who spoke recently, talked about the idea of having teachers, listening to teachers in policy making. The truth is that teachers' voices are often included in policy. And how does that happen? In Cameroon, for example, whenever there's a policy development, a few teachers are called in. At least my time in the ministry, 7 years, I know that teachers were called in, and even recently, when I was in Cameroon, there's a new curriculum, and I know primary school head teachers and teachers who were part of the thinking. Because we cannot listen to, in every civil service, in every public service, the highest number of employees are teachers. No government would listen to 1 million teachers talking. So they would always pick a few teachers. And that is where my contribution starts. Our voices can only be as loud as our collaboration, and teacher associations are the places where teachers go to get their voices as loud as possible. The last time I spoke in Cameroon at the Camelta conference, I asked my colleagues, if the ministry asks you now to tell them the right thing to do, what will you say? And we kept quiet because every individual teacher thinks they know the right thing. And we don't always sit together as a community of practitioners to develop our ideas, because if we develop those ideas through our practitioner research, through sustained evidence from our practice of things that work, government would listen to us. If we stay as individual good teachers, excellent teachers, not too good teachers, bad teachers here and there, how is any government going to take into consideration the voices of 1 million teachers? It's impossible. So I think we need to think about how good we are as individual teachers and make sure that we are growing together with other colleagues within our communities of practice, within our teacher associations, so that together we develop good practice that we can place, which is sustainable because of the bulk of energy, which of evidence, which we have generated over the years. If results suddenly started improving because of the work we are doing with our colleagues, policymakers will listen to us, won't they?
Absolutely.
I'll stop there.
Absolutely, Harry. So we need to really put this in their face, like coming together, like you said, through COPs or whatever association you have in your country, and then making sure that the good things that the association is doing can be in their face. And then this is also will reflect in the results, like national exams, the scores from the national exams. I don't know what system obtains in your country, individual countries, but we have national exams. If students are performing consistently, I'm sure the policymakers will want to know what is it they're doing that is making them perform so well, and maybe offer more support. So, which again, I mean, we are saying the same thing in different languages. So we mustn't give up. We mustn't give up. We must continue to do what we are doing, whether you are involved in research or involved in developing materials or in maybe making suggestions to the policymakers. I mean, it would be good to have somebody like Harry who's been through the ranks, you know? So when you are in that position, then it's easier to really remember how you grew from the lower rung to the upper rung, and you understand what obtains at every level, and you can relate to this. Unlike people that are being handpicked from obscurity and they're placed on top, they don't even know what is going on, and they're just there to serve their masters, not the foot soldiers. I'm still happy to be here. It's 6 minutes past the hour. Who hasn't spoken? I'm still seeing hands. Katano, you want to round up? Amen, I've seen your hand again. Eric, you didn't complete your conversation. Do you want to wrap up now? Before?
Sure, I did. Yes, I just want to, yes. Thank you very much. I'm sorry my internet went off. I had just 2 points I wanted to say. And Harry said the last one, which I'd want to emphasize, that if teachers are doing commendable work in the classrooms, then their voices will be heard. I think more or less teachers are known for the work they're doing and not for partaking in policies. The last thing I would like to say is that there has been no evidence attesting to the fact that participated in policy making, they did very good work in the, I think it's high time teachers started thinking about, okay, ways of translating this curriculum into practical stuffs in the classroom, rather than thinking that they must be part of the curriculum. And Harry just said, no government will listen to 1 million teachers, and that's practical enough. Thank you so much, Okon. It's fantastic listening to you all.
That's fine, Eric. Thank you. Flavian, your hand has been up all right. You are the moderator. I don't know if you are moderating or you want to contribute to the discussion. Flavian?
I think, Okon, sorry, I think we should end it here just to be fair to other webinar providers. Yeah.
Okay.
Because the time limitation was 20 minutes on previous webinars.
Oh.
And this will go on our YouTube channel as well.
Beautiful. I think we can continue the discussion on YouTube. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for coming. And I look forward to seeing you again in my next presentation. This has been very helpful and useful and very rich discussion. Good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Stay safe. Stay safe, my friend.
Well done, Okon.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Stay safe.
All right.
Stay safe, everyone.
Yeah,
You
sure.
too.
Coronavirus. Yep.
And
Don't forget.
Wash your hands. Wash your hands.
Social distancing. Good. Yeah.
Bye. Bye.
Okay, so I'm going to close it now. Thank you very much.